my grandfather had like begged us to fix the AC before we left because he's from the Midwest and we're ignorant California boys, and we're like, it's gonna be fine, and we're like sweating in Louisiana in the middle of summer. But it was awesome, really cool experience. We met a ton of cool people that I still know and I'm friends with today along the way.
Coming to you straight from Fremont, California, this is the Fremont Podcast, dedicated to telling the stories of the past and present of the people and places of the city of Fremont, one conversation at a time.
Hello Fremont, this is Ehsan, and we are in a shopping center near my home in Water Spring. You're listening to episode 51 of the Fremont Podcast.
Now, here's your host, Ricky B.
All right. Well, I am once again at Devout Coffee, and I have an office at Devout. We were in the warehouse for previous episodes, but warehouse was not available today. It had actually been very cold as the weather took a downturn. But I am in my office at Devout, and I am joined by Martin. Thank you for joining me on the Fremont Podcast.
Ricky, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna really love this because we've already had a good discussion, and I'm excited to hear more about you. So you're a musician. So tell me a little bit about your music journey and like what songs have you written, and tell me a little bit about your story there.
So my music journey, I've been in love with music since the day I was born, and I've come from a musical family. My grandfather, my uncles, they all taught me how to play guitar as I was growing up. I really dove into playing guitar when I was probably 12 or 13. I would sit by the radio and record songs off the radio and pick them out by ear. And then I went through Ohlone College right here in Fremont, and I did four semesters of music theory. And then I was really enamored with playing live shows. I really loved, bands of the 90s. I'm a 90s kid, so I loved I loved grunge, Pearl Jam, Sublime, 311, Dave Matthews Band. That was like my jam.
That's it.
Heavy into acoustic guitar. I only play acoustic guitar. I've never really played electric.
Okay.
And so, I just started playing acoustic guitar. Then kind of fast forward, I've started going to Ohlone. I've always worked in Fremont. I worked at Outback Steakhouse.
Yeah, how long have you lived? Oh, really? How long have you lived in Fremont?
I was born and raised in Fremont.
Wow.
So I went to Cabral Elementary School. I went to Thornton Junior High. I went to American High School. Graduated 2000, and I've always worked. I used to work at Marie Callender's, a restaurant that's now defunct from Fremont.
You were saying Outback Steakhouse?
And then Outback Steakhouse for a long time, 6 or 7 years. And in fact, my musical journey took a huge step for me personally, not success-wise, but more just kind of falling in love with performing live when I kind of recognized an opportunity when I was working at Outback Steakhouse. I had met a couple people had come through Outback Steakhouse that were from different parts of the country, and they would show up, and I was like, where are you from? And they were like, I'm from Texas, or I'm from Illinois, but I'm just here for a couple weeks. I'm kind of traveling the country. And I found out that Outback had a program where you could transfer to any Outback within the country, and we all use the same Posi touch system. So as long as you get approval from the proprietor, you could transfer to any Outback and pick up shifts for any amount of time. And it was this really cool kind of program that they had for employees. It just so happened that I probably 6 months earlier just started kind of performing live by myself for the first time when I was around 20 years old. And so when I found this out, I might have been a little older, 21 or so, 22. When I found this out, I was like, oh man, so I could technically book a tour and work Outback Steakhouse, because I know I'm not going to make any money on my tours, right? My first tour ever. But if I could literally travel the country. And so I booked a 2-month tour, and I stayed for 10 days in 6 or 7 different cities. And I played 2 or 3 shows per city. And my brother happened to be working with Outback too, so he came with me. So he was kind of my drummer on like a little cajon type kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I played acoustic guitar. And I had this little EP that I had with about 6 songs on it. And I booked, so I've played live shows in Austin, Texas. I've been to New Orleans. I've played in.
Yeah, how did you book all the? I mean, did you just find like local venues or bars, or what was the deal?
So here's the crazy and the cool thing is that was kind of the days of MySpace was still a thing.
Okay.
And MySpace had this awesome function that you could search events you could search local events by zip code or even by location.
Okay.
So I'd go on MySpace and I'd find the Outback that I got approval to work at, and I would say, okay, I want all live events within a 5-mile radius. And then, a list of 100 events for the next month would show up, and I would literally just go through and pick out which venues I think would book us.
Wow.
And that's kind of how I booked.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Was it a great tour?
Oh, it was an incredible experience.
Yeah.
There were some highs and some lows.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and me and my brother lived out of a van. It was I think around 2005 or 6, and so it was like the height of the gas. I don't know if you remember, but gas was insane.
Oh yeah.
And so we spent, I think, like $5,000 or $6,000 just on gas.
Wow.
Because we were traveling around in this big Econoline van and sleeping out of it, and it had no AC. My grandfather had like begged us to fix the AC before we left because he's from the Midwest, and we're ignorant California boys, and we're like, it's gonna be fine. And we're like sweating in Louisiana in the middle of summer. But it was awesome, really cool
great
experience. We met a ton of cool people that I still know and I'm friends with today along the way. And it was just a phenomenal experience.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad you shared that story. That's pretty cool. And unfortunately, Outback doesn't exist, or I guess
not in Fremont.
The building's still there, but it's still around. But
but it's actually kind of sad because I met my wife she was a hostess and a takeaway, and I met my wife there too. So it was a sad day. We went there the last day it was open. It was during COVID, and we went and got takeout and kind of had a.
Wow,
sad last meal, but it's we still travel out of town and go to an Outback now and again, just for nostalgia.
That's awesome. So when you went to college, when you went to Ohlone, did you major in music then, or what was, like you said, you've been in music your whole life? I mean, was that something that you did in college then as well?
Yeah, initially I kind of wanted to go the route. I had heard that there was jazz degrees, and I was toying with the idea of majoring in jazz music and kind of getting my chops down phenomenally.
Yeah.
And but then I did all 4 semesters of musicianship and music theory and sight singing. But then as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I don't want to teach music, and I feel like that's kind of the only route that's going to end up for me. And so I was like, I can always play music and play live shows without a jazz degree. Right. So I kind of pivoted.
No one's checking your resume.
Yeah, exactly. No one's checking my resume to see if I've got a jazz degree to play shows. So I kind of pivoted, and I've always been kind of passionate about politics, but also like the climate change. I've always been very aware of kind of left-leaning issues, and born in California, you just kind of, I think, are entrenched in that.
Yeah.
And so I have always liked the outdoors. I love hiking, and I love the beach and stuff like that. And environmentalism was just something that I was kind of drawn to. So I got my degree. I transferred from Ohlone to Cal Cities Bay and got my degree in environmental studies.
Okay.
Right at the same time, the big kind of pinnacle for my career as Martin and the Green Guitar is as I graduated with an environmental studies degree from Cal Cities Bay, I took an internship with the Watershed program. The Watershed Project, based out of Richmond. Okay. And their whole goal at the time was to build kind of a prototype ecosystem to recruit. Is the term, but basically to bring back native oysters. Whose populations were decimated from the gold rush.
Wow.
And so I had this really cool job of kind of collecting materials. It's a very strict process to anytime you're in an organization putting something in the San Francisco Bay, it goes through several agencies and you got to get permission from several different agencies.
Yeah.
But so we had to extract these resources and then build these artificial oyster reefs, and we ended up building 100 of them.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's really cool. If you go out to Point Pinole today on a low tide, you'll see what I literally helped build with cement and dredged oyster shell, and
wow,
and it has been a tremendous project. If you go to the Watershed Project's website, you can see it. They still are recruiting. They're still bringing back. It's estimated you need a huge amount, like 100 does nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. But it was kind of a beta project to show this does work. It does bring back native oysters. And if we put this around all over the Bay Area, like these systems will thrive.
Wow, so, that's incredible. So Martin and the Green Guitar is kind of a product of this collision of your environmental interests as well as your being a musician then.
Yeah, so we had, at the end of this project, we had this big fundraiser, and I had mentioned I was a musician to my executive director Chris Lim, and so he... I think I had the idea, or he had the idea, like, oh, maybe you could write a song for this project. And so I wrote this song called "Oyster Float Beside Me," which you could YouTube it. It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
And they kind of paid to record it and made an amazing video to it also.
Wow.
And then they had me perform it at the fundraiser.
That's
in front of all these kind of high earning donors.
Nevada mountains is where our problems started. The prospectors all came here looking for gold. It wasn't long before they found it, not far from river shores. So they dug, and dug some more. What happened to the mud and clay and sediment that washed away down the river, streams, creeks, and lakes? It all washed down along the bottom of our bay, and it's still lying there today. So oyster, oyster, float beside me, filter water and save our bay. How we need you.
We'll be right back with the rest of the conversation in just a moment. Here is a quick conversation that I had with a customer at Dale Hardware. You can grab that. What's your name, sir?
Hi, I'm Pete. Pete the plumber.
Pete the plumber. How long have you been living in Fremont?
66 years.
Wow. And you moved here when you were how old?
6 weeks old.
6 weeks old. Wow. And how long have you been a plumber here?
Here for 30 years.
Okay.
I've been a plumber for 40 years.
Wow. What are some of the things that you like about Fremont? Maybe things that you enjoyed growing up here? First of all, what part of Fremont do you live in?
Well, I grew up in Centerville.
Okay.
Graduated American High School.
Okay.
Hoorah.
Hoorah.
Right now I live in Irvington Square.
Okay. You are shopping at Dale Hardware today. How long have you been a customer here?
I remember when Dale Hardware was in a little store on the other side of Post Street. It was as small as any 7-Eleven in Fremont.
Wow.
Now this is a magnificent store. The help is wonderful here. The material line is better than any other hardware store I go to, except for the stores that Dale Hardware buys from.
Right.
Okay, they buy their product and put it in here.
Yeah.
They have a wonderful product line.
That's great. Are you shopping for personal or business today?
I'm trying to get involved in the raffle that's being drawn today.
I got you. You
know, so make a second coupon and put it in the raffle.
That's awesome. Well,
see.
Thank you for joining me today, man. I appreciate that.
You know, I haven't got your name.
My name is Ricky.
Thank you, Ricky.
Yeah, Ricky B is what I go by. Yeah.
Ricky B. Well, I'm Pete the plumber. So
good
God
to meet you,
bless
Pete the
Ricky.
plumber.
Bye.
Well, Dale Hardware is such a great place for you to find the things that you need when you're working on home projects. It's also a great place to find advice and help, to know exactly how to use the products that you're buying, to use the tools that you're using, and to know exactly what you're doing. Make sure you're doing the things the right way. And so Dale Hardware offers great customer service. And along with that, as you heard in this conversation, there are great events that are happening all the time at Dale Hardware. And there are really great events happening all around the community. Jennifer and John Petroselli have been in the housing market for a long time. They built homes. They've helped develop homes throughout the city of Fremont, and now they are selling and buying homes for people who are trying to make Fremont their place. Whenever I drop into Petrocelli Homes down in Niles, Jennifer Petrocelli always treats me with great respect. I don't happen to be in a place in my life where I can buy or sell a home, but John and Jennifer Petrocelli treat me like family. And I know that if they do that for me, then I know that they'll do that for you as well. So if you're in the market for buying or selling your home, then why don't you drop by Petrocelli Homes on Niles Boulevard, where you too can make your housing dream come true. Now, back to our episode.
And so after the fundraiser, and I did a good job, and I played the song, and they played the video while I was playing it. It was a tremendous success. I had a couple people come up to me afterwards and just say like, "Hey, there's a market for children's music. And you're great. You could do this. You could actually perform in schools and stuff." And I didn't really give that a lot of thought until that point. Mm-hmm. And so then,
how many years ago was this?
So I graduated in 2010.
Okay.
So this was probably 2011 or 12.
Okay.
Right at the same time. So probably 2011. I had just had my first kid.
Okay.
And so right at that time, I decided like, oh, you know what, and I was bartending at the time. I just finished my degree. I was kind of putting my resume out to other places. But as other things were happening and as my wife was kind of starting nursing school, I was toying with the idea of like, oh, you know what, maybe I will write children's music. I've never thought of that before. But so then I ended up maybe a couple of years down the road, life kind of happens and things, the way things play out. I didn't jump into that idea, but I wrote a few songs. So my mother was a kindergarten teacher, and so I kind of tried out 2013, 2014, 2015. I would go into her class and try these songs out, and I have a bunch of great videos of her because she would teach all the kids the sign language. And so the first song I ever wrote was a song called Sustain Our Planet.
Okay.
And the kids all sing with me. And then we started doing like, she would do it on either Earth Day fairs or festivals, and I would show up and the whole class would perform in front of the whole school. And
wow,
it started to feel really good. And so then I was like, you know what, I'm going to write a whole album, and the whole album will kind of be touch on some of the major environmental concepts, and also teach the kids what it'll give me a little time to touch on these concepts and then pull from current events and why they matter and what we can do to change our habits. And so I built this whole assembly, a 45-minute assembly that I've been performing since about 2015 or 16 in schools. And so then I started booking myself in schools since then.
That's really cool. So before we go any further, I think it is important to know that your name is actually Martin, right?
Martin Murray,
and but your guitar is a Martin guitar.
It has to be.
It has to, and you've actually painted it green.
That's absolutely right.
So you are actually Martin with a Martin guitar that is a green guitar.
Yes.
So it's not only just like conceptually or like abstractly a green thing, but you actually have a green guitar.
Literally and metaphorically, It is a green guitar. Yes.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah, had to. And I also, coming up with the concept, I was kind of looking around and seeing, and I could not find even many green guitars that you could buy.
Yeah.
There were some like kid ones and stuff, and so I was like, I'm going to have to paint this myself. And luckily my wife is an amazing artist, so I kind of painted it green, and then she fixed it with some textural textures and fixing with some color, so it just didn't look like a 3-year-old painted it.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, so you've been performing this 45-minute program for schools all over the place. I'm assuming you turned it into an album that people can access.
Yes.
How many albums have you recorded? What do you have out there?
So I have three albums out. Like if you were on Spotify or Apple Music right now, you would find 3 albums that I've done. One which was just an acoustic album with a lot of these songs. The next one was a full length album with all the songs from the acoustic one plus a couple added in, but with a full band. I'm also a professional musician that I haven't really mentioned, but so I have a band that I've been playing with, a phenomenal group of guys all from Fremont.
What's it called?
It's called the Tap Handles.
The Tap Handles?
We play right here at Joe's Corner. We used to play at Joe's Corner before the COVID. We played at Joe's Corner every month.
Wow, that's cool.
Right here on United.
That's cool. Do you guys have any shows right now, or do you have anything that people could find? Any place that people could find you?
Yeah, we don't have a big social media presence, but we do have we have a bunch of gigs lined up at the Crow's Nest out in Santa Cruz.
Okay.
And we play. I know the other guys sometimes play shows without me. My time these days is limited, but they're playing without me a few more gigs too. I think they're playing out in Santa Cruz tomorrow night, to tell you the truth.
Wow.
But yeah, so that's just for us guys, because we've been in bands growing up in Fremont all together, and it's just to keep our chops up and have a great time.
Do you have albums with them as well then?
No, we've never did. But we never did any albums or even recorded any songs together. But I had the honor of having them come on my album and just kind of perform and
awesome.
Just rock the album for me.
That's
cool. So that was awesome.
Well, you're really good. I loved hearing the music at Forest and Flower, and I think you're just a talented musician. And I think for me, like whenever I'm around somebody where I actually just sit and naturally just enjoy whatever it is that they're doing, instead of like noticing there's nothing wrong with there being like, broken edges and the imperfections and stuff like that. But when you just, when somebody is just totally, obsessed or consumed with whatever they're doing in a way that just draws you in, I just think that is really the beauty of an art, that somebody does, And so I just loved hearing you perform at Forest and Flowers grand opening, and great skills on the guitar as well as your voice is just great. So I'm excited to listen to some of your albums, because nice. I think that would be just really cool to have. And I don't need much.
I watch TV commercials and they all tell me how happy I would be with brand new stuff. But I don't buy those things they try to sell me. Got stuff of my own, and all that stuff is just enough. I don't need much. I don't need much. I've got enough. And I don't
so are and you may have just said this already, but I think I'm just curious. So the 45-minute program is kind of geared toward children specifically.
Oh, absolutely.
And are all three of the albums that you put out, are they all geared toward children then?
Absolutely. All three of the albums are, I kind of aimed it at K through 6, more probably accurately K through fourth grade. I wanted it to be, I kind of wanted to emulate a couple of my heroes, which are Pete Seeger and Raffi, which were huge in my upbringing and just really good at writing sing-along songs that are memorable and catchy, but also serve a message.
Yeah.
And so I definitely didn't want to get too complicated. I didn't want to get too complicated with my lyrics. I also didn't want to get too tricky with the songs, because I really wanted them ideally to be like recreated in the classroom. I want a teacher to be able to pick up a guitar and be like, oh, this is G, C, and D. Like I can play this with the kids right now. Yeah. And so that was kind of my thought process when I was writing them. And then the last album I put out, which was right when COVID hit, was just a collection of songs that I had pulled that were kind of the top 40 hits on the radio. A big kind of fan favorites that I play in my assemblies is usually I'll take like a famous song and rewrite the lyrics to be environmentally conscious, and so they recognize the tune, but then and then they kind of go crazy when I say something like saving the planet, or just change the lyrics a little bit. And so I wrote a whole album that was just kind of filled with some of the favorites at the time.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So so you've been doing this now for probably a decade, and have you seen anything develop out of a response? I mean, there was obviously the Oyster story, but I mean, some of the kids that you first started playing to are probably in college now, and I would just imagine. I mean, have you seen anything specifically develop out of some of the earlier stuff that you did, or even now that you like, what you can see that what you did was a significant thing?
I wouldn't say I have any like solid projects that I could point to, but I will say that I have been approached from kids that I played to 7-8 years ago, and they'll be like, "Oh man, you're Martin and the Green Guitar. Like you came and sang this song," and they'll remember specific lyrics or a specific song that I sang, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, your assembly was so awesome," and it's like, "Oh, that's so cool that that it resonated with you and that it stuck with
caught
you."
Their attention.
Because I definitely remember some of the assemblies that came to my school, and that's really what I just want to be. In all honesty, the reason that I even kind of set out and said kids music was kind of where it was at for me was I just want to be that like spark in their brain that maybe the teachers didn't get through to with just a science lesson or didn't get through to with just talking about it. Music has been such a profound thing in my life, and a lot of the things that I believe and that I strive to be are because of amazing lyrics and amazing music that I've heard. And that's so great. If I can even be a drop in that bucket, I will happily I will happily swim in that legacy.
Yeah, music is so powerful in that way. It really is so formative.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the significant things between like teaching, and I think teaching is important, but I think teaching is more informational, and I think that music though is so formative. It like something that really just kind of shapes it connects with our affections, it connects with our feelings just in a particular scenario, in a context, in an environment. And it kind of creates its own story in that moment, as opposed to just something being taught to you. So, well, we've got something. You brought something with you here.
I did.
Can I see this? What is this? You are not only a composer and a writer and a recording artist, but you are an author now.
Yes.
And so you brought a book that you wrote called "A Message in the Storm" by Martin and the Green Guitar. And how long has this book been out?
You are holding the single only printed copy currently. This is literally coming out in the coming week or two.
Okay.
And I've just received kind of news that it is ready for publishing and that it's ready for sales. So I'm going to release it for pre-sales probably in the next couple of days. And yeah, it is my first children's book. It's a children's book illustrated by an amazing illustrator, Lisa Sacchi she's actually residing in Italy.
Okay.
But she was gracious enough to take this project on. I have actually toyed with the idea of putting out children's books in the past. I was picked up by an agent earlier this year and then dropped really quick because of kind of some artistic pushback that I was giving, and I will totally take ownership over the fact that I got dropped because of my own ego maybe. But I just this was the story that I wanted to put out, and after that experience I thought, well, I can keep pitching. I pitched it to several publishers with no response, and I just know that I have a unique situation because I do put myself in front of large audiences very regularly, whereas I don't think a lot of other children's artists do.
Interesting, yeah.
And so I thought, the way that self-publishing works now, it doesn't require me to buy 10,000 books and keep them on hand to sell.
Right.
There's great technology with print on demand, and so I kind of just thought now's the good time to kind of take my own destiny into my own hands. Wow. And so this is I really wanted this book to come out. I've been sitting on this story for probably a year, and this is exactly how it's written and how it's portrayed is I've cleared and written every word exactly how I want it to be read. That's so
very cool.
I'm really stoked about it, and I'm really excited to. I have several other stories, and I'd really like to just be a story writer, whether it's in book form or music form or spoken word form. I really just like the idea of kind of creating content that inspires environmentalism, but also through unique stories and original stories.
You've had this story for about a year.
Yeah.
And you've had the idea, you've toyed around with the idea of writing children's books for some time. What was the catalyst? I literally just received the book. I'm opening it up and I'm kind of thumbing through it while you're telling the story. What was the catalyst behind this particular book? Like, what was it that for you was like, I've got to do this, and I'm doing it now, and like, what was that? Yeah, and maybe that's combined with the actual story that's in here as well.
Once COVID hit, I had a lot of live performances booked for schools all over California that literally just went away, and as soon as they shut down everything, and it didn't just affect me. I think it affected a few more people than just myself, but that really kind of sparked okay, well, what do I do now? Like, if this is kind of my passion project, and if I want to keep, like, I don't know when live performances are coming back, and even, it's 2022, it's almost 2023, and still assemblies are not roaring back in elementary schools. And so when in 2021, I had written some stories that I thought maybe I could convert, or, maybe I can write these into good songs. But then I'm constantly reading stories to my children at home. And a lot of times I'm reading these books and I'm like, how does this clown get published? Or, how does it, like, and I'm reading these things that my kids love.
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, this is, I think I have some stories to tell and some pretty unique ideas. And I'm already writing children's songs. And so I was like, I'm gonna see if I can flesh one out. And so I wrote this one, A Message in the Storm, is one of the first ones I ever wrote. I also have another one that I would like to work on that I will maybe save for a future podcast or something like that. But it's just been a really fun. It's been really fun writing it. It was really fun writing it, and I've been sitting on the story. It kind of was I had started the story, but I wasn't really sure how I was going to end it, and it just kind of came as I was driving to a gig, and I was like, man, this is exactly how I need to end it, and I think it's a really unique and fun story.
Yeah. That's awesome. A Message in the Storm. It looks like, in a nutshell, the impact that pollution has on in the story and on a single individual, but then how that single individual understands this pollution to affect so many other things that are significant too.
Exactly right. It's a quick, a brief synopsis would be, it's a girl who loves to dance, and she hears music through nature and through things like the ocean, and she loves dancing outdoors. There's a polluted beach. She gets injured, and the things that she does next kind of take on this big environmental impact, and it just kind of shows how important an individual's actions are and how they can kind of resonate throughout a whole community.
That's so cool. Well, I feel privileged that I got to look at the very first and only copy at the moment. That's really great. If people are interested in finding this book when it comes out, like, where's the best place for them to go to find it?
That's a great question. In fact, I just received a notice just yesterday that Banter Books, an independent bookstore, just ordered some.
I can't remember what episode they were, but they were one of our first 20 episodes.
Oh, that's incredible!
With, Amy at Banter Books, and I'm assuming she'll probably have you come in and read the book too as
Absolutely.
well.
We're organizing that. We're going to organize that probably closer to Earth Day 2023.
Nice.
But yeah, so you can expect those to be hitting her shelves, I think, in mid-December, once this book is released. And I believe pre-sales will start on Friday of this week, so the Friday the 11th. And then I believe we can start selling them as early as the following week.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, if you guys haven't listened to my interview with Amy at Banter Books, that's a really good one. You should check it out. And if you haven't been to the store, if you like, the real copies of books instead of just digital and e-versions, then you need to support our local bookstore downtown. And Banter Books is just a really great bookstore. I've gotten a number of books in there for myself and my son, and now you'll be able to get to pick up Martin and the Green Guitar.
Exactly right.
His book. Yeah.
And great. And also to it's not just available there. It'll be available anywhere you shop for books online. Yeah. You can also get them on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Is there a website? A Message in the Storm.
MartinandtheGreenGuitar.com. You can certainly pick it up from my website as well.
Awesome.
But yes, it was a little bit of. I'll tell you real quick when I was talking to Amy from Banter Books, I was a little nervous because this was kind of the first professional that I had been handing my book off to, and she kind of reads the advanced copy. And so, I was asking her what's the percentage of publisher written books versus independent, self-published. She's like, 99 to 1, 99% to 1.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, well, that's not good odds for me. But I was like, please, but I don't know if it was the tears she saw welling up in my eyes or the fact, but it was a little bit of vindication that I had written a good and compelling
That's great.
Story for children.
Great.
And so, yeah, she was gracious enough to pick it up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, Martin, before we go, I'm just curious, are there any places that are special to you? I mean, there's Outback, obviously, that was special. You met your wife there. But anything around Fremont to you that is a special thing, a special place, any special experiences that you have? Or anything specifically that maybe even you'd like to share with people about Fremont that you think would be important for them?
Oh, man.
By the way, I would say I think just recently there was a study that came out that said like Fremont was like the 15th greenest city in the country, and that's fascinating to me, I think. So
yeah, they really, I mentioned, I'm probably not on the podcast part, but I mentioned that I initially was thinking of going into urban planning.
Yeah, that's right.
And Fremont has really adopted that I think belief of kind of planning for lessening your carbon footprint.
Yeah.
And so you see that a lot with these transit-oriented developments where there's a lot of condos being put up around BART because, specifically so that you don't have to drive so much to get to work, things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would say if there was a couple places that I could mention, I would say I love that we live in the same city as with Mission Peak and Sunol and a couple of these East Bay regional parks. They're phenomenal, and if you ever go visit them, not only will I think they kind of move your soul with how beautiful they are and just how immersed in nature you are, and you're only minutes away from downtown Fremont. But you could also go say hi to my brother, who is a East Bay Regional Park ranger out there.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. Yeah. That's very good. We'll have to maybe get him on here.
Yeah.
I love the East Bay Park system. I love getting out to Sunol and Coyote Hills and the different parks around here.
Yep.
And I've actually I had a few friends that were rangers pre-COVID, and I think that they have since moved out of the area. But I would love to get somebody on here from the East Bay. But yeah, we'll have to say hi to your brother.
Certainly.
Is he Taylor and the purple guitar?
No. He's Daniel. The East Bay Funkle Daniel is what we call him because he's very, very fun.
That's awesome.
He's the fun uncle. But yeah, he's out there all the time, and we love going out there and seeing him.
That's awesome. Well, Martin, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Your story is inspiring. Your presence is really great. I think this is something that the people obviously that you've performed for have been impacted by, but I think also just having you in the city of Fremont and being able to share your skills and your passions, I think is just a really great thing. So it's a pleasure to have you as part of Fremont. So.
Pleasure's all mine. I love that you when I met you and that you were doing a Fremont podcast, I was immediately enamored with the whole idea, the whole concept.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for that. I appreciate it.
This episode was hosted and produced by Ricky B. I'm Gary Williams. Andrew Cavett is the editor. Music is provided through Soundstripe.com. You can find links to our social media and other content at thefremontpodcast.com. Be sure to subscribe wherever it is that you listen so you don't miss an episode. And if you're so inclined, leave a kind review so that others can find the podcast. Join us next week on the Fremont Podcast.
The bee, the pollen, the flower, the food, the bee, the pollen, the flower, the food, the bee, the pollen, the flower, the food, the bee, the pollen, the flower, the food. The bee, the busy little bee, he buzzes around the town, yeah, he buzzes in the flowers and the trees for the pollen. He's looking for the pollen is his calling, and he finds it in the flowers and the trees, and he never stops, always working, and he never drops. And what he's carrying, he always hops flower to another, picking pollen for the hive alongside his brothers, and the bee does dances for the others, and he uses dance, helps the bee.
This is Muggins Media.